So you've been leading Uber's diversity and inclusion efforts for about a month now.
Correct.
What have you learned in the first 30 days on the job?
I think the most significant thing that I've really come to appreciate is just how different the internal culture is from the external sort of perception of the organization. So everybody I've met so far has been so warm, so welcoming, so proud of the organization. One of the themes that I keep hearing over and over again is people are saying, when can I actually be proud of the organization? Like, I'm proud of what I'm doing, I'm proud of my team, I'm proud of the effort, but I feel like the things were so bad last year that I can't go out and publicly say, here's all the awesome stuff we're doing in the company, here's how awesome the company is. So that's really been one of the biggest things, and so I think about my job as like, how do I get us to a place where people can actually be proud, really be proud of what they're doing in the organization.
And taking over the diversity function at Uber, that's a big job.
It
What
is.
inspired you to do that?
Inherently, I'm someone who likes to make things better. And I really am, I dedicated my life to D&I 18 years ago when I was going to graduate school myself. So whenever I have that opportunity to create an environment where everybody really has the ability to succeed to their highest ability, that excites me. Right? So I'm a builder by nature, I'm a problem solver by nature, and so even when Uber first called me, I was actually I had a 5-month-old baby at the time, and I was thinking, oh my God, I'm insane for even taking this call. But when I really thought about the opportunity and when I had that conversation with my partner, it was just something where I could have a huge impact on so many people, and I couldn't turn that down.
And Uber just released its latest diversity report last week,
Correct.
and we saw a small uptick in the number of women working at the company. What's your vision moving forward for getting those numbers moving faster in the right direction?
So I think in order to move those numbers, I'm really cognizant of the fact that we will never be able to hire our way to diversity, particularly at the senior levels, just because there aren't really that many women at that level, and even if we got our unfair share, we'd still be underrepresented. So for us, it really is about not even trying to get our unfair share, but it's about creating the populations. So I don't want to go out there and just hire from the same pools and get a larger percentage of them. I actually want to say, are there alternative places that we're not even looking? So whether it is our driver partner population, I would love to see us drive much harder and say, how do we create a pipeline for them to enter our workforce, right? How do I create, if I look at our customer support organization represents about 50% of our workforce, right? And they are our most diverse, racial, ethnically, gender-wise. And how do we create a pipeline for them to enter into our tech organizations or our operations organizations? Because right now there isn't that clarity, and I would love to see that happening.
And you mentioned race, which the numbers showed in the diversity report that the number of Black and Latinx employees barely moved.
Yes.
What are the unique challenges there?
I think one of the things that's a very unique challenge is one, just the math small numbers, right? So whether it is in traditional tech, tech roles like engineering, there isn't a large cohort in the marketplace. It's a little bit like moving chess pieces, right? I'll take one from you, but then you're going to take one from me, and so forth. That's one of the biggest challenges. They are very small numbers, and again, it goes back to what I said, we have to create our own pipelines. We can't rely on the pipelines that are coming in from the traditional universities and schools and that are graduating people, because we know that those populations have underrepresentation of, African Americans and Latinx as well. So it's where are the undiscovered pools of talent? And I think for us, we have a very unique position in the tech sector where we do have this very rich driver partner community that is so dedicated to us. Can we look there and create opportunities? And of course, they come from more non-traditional educational backgrounds. So it's not like we can just kind of pluck them out and say, here's a tech role, here's an engineering role. So what are the partnerships, what are the educational partnerships we have to make to provide that kind of funnel within the organization?
And too often these issues of gender and racial diversity are kind of talked about in silos.
Right.
Do we need to bring them together and talk about them in tandem?
Absolutely, we do, we really do, because ultimately at the end of the day, the dynamics of exclusion are the same. Every human being has a in-group, out-group cognitive bias, right? We all want, we're all human beings. We like to surround ourselves with people who look like us, act like us, because it's very nice to be self-validated. So that is the source of both the lack of women in tech, that's the source of the racial ethnic, but we oftentimes tend to think about them very differently. And frankly, sometimes the conversation around women is much easier to have, because at least in that conversation you're it's 50% of the workforce, right? It's 50% of the population. Within the African American and the historically underrepresented minorities, African Americans and the Latinx, you can't say, oh, they're 50% of the population. You can't say they're getting 50% of the university degrees out there. So we tend to talk about it very differently. And I think also there has been this socialized, I can't say anything wrong about race and ethnicity because if I do, I'm going to be labeled a racist. So I think that has been so socialized in a lot of people, they tend to suppress that conversation. And we really need to be able to surface it a little bit more.
Were there any stats in the recent diversity report that you were encouraged by?
I think the main encouragement, when I looked at the next level of data, right, because we put out data in there, when I look at it by level, we're actually seeing increases in representation at every level of the organization. So, this wasn't publicly released, but when I look at the data, we're seeing all the improvements around gender in particular wasn't just at the bottom of the organization, it was at the bottom, the middle, at the top. So I love that tells me we're creating those internal pipelines upward, right? And I just want to make sure that over the years that continues to strengthen. So as opposed to making 2 to 3% increases, we're making 4 to 5, 5 to 6 over time.
And now that you're on the inside at Uber, what do you think is the single biggest misconception about the company?
I think the biggest misconception about the company is that we're unethical. Like, I will tell you, when the announcement went out that I was joining the organization, my Twitter feed was filled with people saying, well, I hope you enjoy working for a very unethical company. Oh my gosh, they take advantage of people, they take advantage of their workers, they take advantage of everybody. And that couldn't be further from the truth. Like, I cannot tell you how many people have come to me in the last month saying, I really want to be able to do the right thing. Help me, give me guidance on how to do the right thing. So it's really, I think, changing that perception of us as a company.
So what can you tell us in terms of the projects that you're working on and what you're going to be focused on moving forward?
A few of the projects that I'm working on is obviously I'm working very closely with our recruiting because we can always be doing a better job on creating and finding those sources of diverse talent, right? And then not just finding the sources, but I think that has been a really big focus in the tech sector is like, how do we find more diverse people? But it's about de-biasing our entire recruiting process, right? From the interviewing, are hiring managers inadvertently bringing in some of their unconscious biases? How do we ensure that we can build a process that doesn't allow the unconscious biases to manifest, right? How are we onboarding people and ensuring that those who are underrepresented are creating those networks early on so that they have that stickiness to the organization. So obviously the pipeline and sourcing is one thing that I'm really focused on. But the other thing where I am really, really passionate about is looking at our talent management process. And sometimes I say I'm in the very unsexy, boring business of D&I. Because really when you look at the day-to-day work of diversity and inclusion, it's not about this special initiative over here or here's this new cool training that we develop, but it's sitting down with my human capital partners and saying, what does our promotion process look like? What do our competencies look like? And doing like keyword analysis of our competencies, doing keyword analysis of our performance management outcomes, and saying, are there biases built into those? And that's the kind of boring work, but it's the really important stuff. So I'm spending a lot of time also there, really looking at reshaping all of our human capital processes.
We started the conversation talking about what a big job this is. As a leader, how are you thinking about prioritizing?
I'm very much in the business of small wins, right? So, and I think this is also very important for Uber because people are so hungry for progress. And I can't say, I'm gonna do all this big stuff, but you're not gonna see the progress in 5 years, right? So I'm saying, what are some of the low-hanging fruit? And I think one of the really wonderful things is that we have this amazing employee resource group within the organization, and a third of our workforce is engaged in that. And so for me, I say, how do we really optimize those groups so that they're part of the conversation? It's not that they're just doing these kind of one-off programs for their cohort of women or people of color or LGBT, but how are they actually part of the culture transformation? I think those are the things that I can really do so that we have small wins along the way, and that's just one example, small wins along the way so people can see the progress and feel the progress every single day.